All right, all right. If you guys are just tuning in today, I'm Jerry. I'm the owner over here at Wealth Dynamics. We are live tonight for our Friday night wealth creation course. If you're just joining us on Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, Zoom, wherever you might be at, I want to welcome you. We do these courses every Friday. Every Friday night, I teach a course on money. And the reason why I do that is because I think there's not enough financial education out there. I think more of us, need to be communicating about money, hearing about money, thinking about money, and it's not something that I was ever talked to about or taught about very much as a kid. Okay, so if you're watching this tonight, I want you to think, like, no matter what age group you are, if you're watching this tonight, I want you to think, when do you remember like someone sitting down with you and having like an honest conversation about money? Like, when was the first time you remember that happening? Okay, for me, to be honest, it didn't happen until I was a financial advisor. Meaning, like, it didn't happen until I started talking to other people about their money. Before that, nobody once sat down with me and had an honest conversation with me about money pertaining to my finances. So it's kind of this thing that like we don't talk about. It's taboo. We don't confront. There's not a lot of education about it. It's like one of those like when we're kids, like we're taught really two big things, right? We're taught don't talk to strangers, and we're taught don't talk about your money. Have you ever thought about that? We're taught don't talk to strangers and don't talk about your money, right? And so it ends up being just like this festering topic for a lot of us. Like I have some like some juice when I was a kid, like thinking back to like, man, things I saw my parents do with finances. Like I had concerns, wonders, questions, like why did we lose our house when I was 8 or 9? I didn't know. Why did the repo man come and take my mom's car when I was 9 years old? I don't know. Why were we homeless for 8 weeks one summer living in a tent when I was little? I don't know. Right? During those times, it was never communicated like this is money, this is finances, and here's how it all works. Okay. And so that's what I wanted to address tonight. We're talking taboo topics, guys. So we're gonna do things a little bit differently. Okay. I have a list. You guys can all see I have a list. These are the most taboo topics I could think of on the subject of finances. And I intend to cover, I would like to cover all of them. I don't think I'm gonna, just because I'll end up talking and we won't get through all of them. But what I want to do tonight is if you guys have questions or topics that you feel are taboo and need to be addressed and you'd like to hear me talk about, I want you to drop those in the comments tonight. Okay, so if you're on Facebook, if you're on Instagram, it doesn't matter. Drop those in the comments if you would like for me to talk about a particular topic regarding finances. Okay, and we're going to dive into it. Now, I want to dive into it with the intention of a few things. First one being to actually open up communication on the topic of money. Like, get over, like, if you're like, man, like money, this thing, and we can't talk about it, yada, yada. Like, we were born into it. Like you were born, you had to obey oxygen, gravity, and money. You didn't even know about money yet, and you had to obey it. So it's always there for everybody. So for us to act like it's not doesn't make a whole lot of sense. It doesn't help anybody, right? And so what I want to do is just open up communication. Let's talk about it. Let's make it a normal subject. Let's make it something that we can just have a conversation about, right? And then the other thing that I want to do is I want to help add some of my viewpoints and confront. Confront means to face something without flinching. Confront the topic of money. A lot of us, we have money problems because we're not willing to confront what's happening with our finances. Meaning we're not really willing to square up and look at what is happening with my money and face it for what it is without justifying it or changing the story or somehow making it more okay than it really is. Like, I've done all of that stuff before myself. It just makes it easier to stay in a bad financial position. So I want to help confront the topic of finances. Okay. Like that's something we're going to do tonight. So we're going to confront it. And then lastly, we're going to provide solutions. Everything we talk about tonight, we will provide a solution. Okay. That's the game plan. So if you guys, again, if you're watching this, if you have questions about finances, we're talking taboo topics tonight. Things that you would not normally address with your finances. Things that you were told never to talk about. Things that nobody ever addressed with you. Things that were kept under the rug. Things that were kept secret. Things you feel like you should know about, but you don't feel comfortable asking. We're hitting all of that tonight. So drop those things in the comments. I'm going to answer them for you tonight best I can. So first thing we're going to cover tonight, Okay, first thing we're going to cover tonight is the topic of debt. Okay, debt, D-E-B-T, debt. What is debt, right? Debt is when a person borrows money from somebody else because they don't have any. I said we're going to confront it. That's debt. I did not have money, therefore I had to use someone else's. Now, really quickly, we're not talking about real estate and leverage. Most of us watching are not doing that stuff. We weren't sophisticated when we got debt. I can't afford this car. Let me borrow money for it. Or I can't afford this trip to Disney World for my kids. Let me charge it up on my Alaska airline cards. Anchorage, I'm talking to you guys. Okay, that's the topic we're going over right now. Debt. What is debt? Debt is a credit, meaning that I didn't have something, I borrowed it from somebody else and now I owe them. Okay, debt is something that I grew up with. My parents were in debt, my dad was in debt, my mom was in debt. We lost our house over debt. Like, debt is a thing that most of us struggle with, but I don't ever hear anyone talk about it. When we do, it's always like Dave Ramsey, like cut up your credit cards and never have debt again. Okay, but here's the issue with that. Okay, that doesn't educate me on what debt is. And just because I've cut up my credit cards doesn't mean that debt is gone. There's still tons of debt out there in the world. So if I don't figure out how to handle debt, I'm going to have a very hard life. I'm going to have a very hard life because I never actually figured out how to handle it. If I ever get in a situation with it again, I can't fight back. I can't do anything because my solution was just to get rid of it entirely. Right? So I have to think about that. So when we think debt, again, the times that I got in debt, if I think about my very first credit card that I ever got, it was because I was trying to get airlines points. To be quite honest with you guys, I was 18, 19 years old, just got married. Somebody that, and I'm about to write down another topic here, somebody that I listened to on the topic of finances told me how financially wise it was to get airlines points because you could save money on flights. And they told me about the buddy pass. If you get this credit card, you get a free first class flight every year if you spend so much money. So I did that. I was like, cool, I'm going to get that because that sounds smart. I ended up charging the credit card up, not being able to pay it off. And now I'm paying money towards my debt. Okay. If I have debt, that is something that I did to myself. No one ever told me that. No one ever told me when I borrow money, I did that to myself. I wasn't being picked on. Nobody put a gun to my head and made me do it. It's nobody's fault. And it essentially means that A, like I said, I borrowed money that I didn't have. And then B, I never had a plan to pay it back. Because if I did, it would have been paid back. So if I have debt like outstanding, it means that I still haven't ever come up with a plan to pay it back. I've been there. That's crazy. When I look back at that, I can think about credit cards, car loans, business loans, like things that I borrowed money for, never thinking about the definition of debt is someone else's money that I'm going to pay back to them with interest. How am I going to do that? How am I actually going to pay this off? Right. And again, like debt was a very big part of my childhood. My parents never sat down with me ever and talked about debt. Most of us never have that conversation, right? Think about it. Like, we get out of high school. If you went to college, immediately you're being offered debt. No one ever educated you like, hey, this is a student loan. This is how it works, right? But the thing is like right now, I think the average balance on an American's credit card right now is like 13 to 15 grand. By the way, where I'm from, Alaska, we lead the country per capita. Crazy, but we have the highest credit card debt per capita in the state of Alaska. No one talks about it. Like, you'll go to church, people swimming in debt. Okay, you'll go to work, the people that you think are killing it with finances, if you could see their balance sheet, they're swimming in debt. Right? And the idea is I can afford the payment, therefore it's okay. But here's the problem, guys. Debt is, again, something I did to myself, but it's also, if I flip this, it's an asset for the person that I owe. So I'm never going to get wealthy if I have the debt because that person is getting wealthy instead. They're getting wealthy at my expense. I am their asset. I am paying them the rate of return. I am giving them my income. Okay, so debt is one of those topics like everyone should confront. We need to face it because I would say 90% of us have it. 90% of us have it. We don't talk about it. We've got the credit cards charged up. We live in a house we can't afford. We have car payments like $400 or $500 a month. Saving zero. Now, by the way, we're not saving money, and nobody acts like it's a thing. Okay, so if you've ever had debt, like, I want you to realize and confront what I had to realize and confront is A, I did that to myself. It's no one else's fault. B, I borrowed money because I didn't have money. That's actually the root problem, by the way. The solution to solving with debt is I need to fix that. I need to never be in a position again where I don't have money. C, I never had a plan to pay it back. Otherwise, I wouldn't still have the debt. Meaning that's like, for me anyways, my viewpoint, that is like a centimeter away from stealing, borrowing money that I have no idea how I'm going to pay back. I wouldn't want someone to do that to me, so I wouldn't do that with my debt. I'm not going to borrow money and not have an exit strategy, right? These are all levels of responsibility that are very low financially, and I've been there before, so I'm not saying you're wrong and you're this and you're that. I'm saying this is an American thing. Like, we do this in this country, and it's normalized. No one addresses it, okay? So how do we handle debt? First thing, I have to solve the root issue, right? If I'm trying to handle debt, I have to actually get in a position where I am financially solvent, meaning that when I pay off the debt, I'm not broke again. Okay, I used to be a Dave Ramsey guy, and I would tell people, like, snip up your credit cards, get $1,000 saved, and pay off all your debt. The problem is I would do that plan, and I would have no money saved because I was paying off all my debt. When I paid it off, something bad would happen. I'd have to go right back into debt because my car broke, or I had this come up, that come up, and I charged it back up on the credit cards. Right? So if I'm really trying to fix debt, I have to be solvent first. This is something we teach our clients that's very different. I have to get solvent, then go after the debt. Simple logic. Like, you remember being a kid in the schoolyard and hearing, don't pick a fight with someone that's not your size. Okay, you are not Bank of America's size. Don't pick a fight with them right now. Like, go get solvent, go work out. In other words, go to the gym, eat some protein shakes, get in a position where you can actually go pay off the debt and still be okay afterwards. Because a victory where I'm debt free but broke and about to go back in debt is not really a victory. Okay, so that's the solution. And prior to that solution, I have to be very, very honest with myself. Before I can solve the debt thing, I have to stop agreeing with it. Meaning I have to stop justifying why it's okay that I went in debt and making sense of it. Like, I'm going to be honest, if I went to college right now and I've got 40, and I didn't go to college, but if I did and I've got $40,000 in student loans and I'm not working a job in the field that I got my degree in, I'm looking at myself and saying, I was an idiot. That was a terrible financial decision. There's nothing that makes sense about that. It wasn't a good idea. I wouldn't do it again. I wouldn't tell anyone else to do it. Like, that's what I would have to admit before I could get out of the debt. Otherwise, I agree with it. Okay, like if I want to break this down, in order for somebody to have a financial problem, they have to actually construct the problem. All problems are comprised of two opposing sides. I've got one side over here going this way. I've got one side over here going this way, and the two things don't go in the same direction. That is a problem. I have the idea that I want to get out of debt, yet I'm still justifying and agreeing why I was in debt in the first place. I'm not going to make any progress. You see that? So I have to realize that. And then secondarily, I've actually got to take the action, and like, communicating about this helps a lot. Communicating with other people, like, hey, I'm paying off my debt right now. What are you doing? Like, here's my progress. Here's how I got in. Like, that's stuff we should talk about, right? So that's the first thing I want to hit. Debt. Second topic, guys, we're getting deep on this one. Tax evasion. Okay, tax evasion. What is tax evasion? Tax evasion, this is a topic we're going to cover. Tax evasion is when somebody does not pay their taxes when they should. They owe it, but they don't want to talk. They don't want to pay it. Right? They get away from paying it. They find a way not to. That's not legal, by the way. There are plenty of legal ways to avoid paying taxes. I'm talking about like Willie Nelson, right? Love my guy Willie, but he had tax evasion. He ends up in jail over it, right? So tax evasion is something that more people than you would like to know commit. Now, just so you guys know where my stance is, I'll come right out of the gate. Taxation is theft. Okay, the government doesn't own me. They don't own my work. They don't own my energy. They don't even own the land in the country. They're just bigger than I am and have more guns. And they'll stick me in a cage and put one of the guns to my head if I don't like that. That's the only reason taxation exists, is no one will do anything else about it, right? We're all intimidated. So my viewpoint is not like pay your fair share. I think it's terrible. I hate taxes, right? However, it is the law. I have to pay income tax. If I owe income tax, I have to pay income tax. Notice I specified if I owe income tax. Okay, a little bit of a trick there for you. I'll talk about that on a different video. But if I owe income tax, I do have to pay it. It's a law. So if I don't pay income tax, I am breaking the law. I am refusing to pay something that I owe, and that's not going to help me out financially. Guys, like, we're talking about the IRS. I was having this conversation with somebody probably a year or two ago about, like, when we're dealing with the government, it doesn't matter what your rights are. It doesn't matter what you think the Constitution says. It doesn't matter what you think you can do. At the end of the day, they can switch the rules. The house always wins. So if I owe them money, they can come to my house and arrest me. They can hold me against my will. They don't have to, like, all of the things that I think they have to follow because I'm a smart American citizen, they don't have to follow. Right? My client Justin just said Al Sharpton, like, that guy, a freaking pastor or reverend, I guess, ends up in a situation with tax evasion. Right? So I have to pay it. Now, here's the bottom line. Again, we're going to confront it. Tax evasion. If somebody is evading taxes, they straight up lack creativity. That's it. Like, if I'm just like, I disagree with taxes, therefore I'm not going to pay, bro, you just lack creativity. I love the sentiment. I don't want to pay taxes either, but there are legal ways to get around it. And so if I'm in a position where I'm just saying, nope, I'm not even going to try. I'm not even going to attempt to get educated. A, it means that I'm financially illiterate. B, it means that I lack creativity. C, it means I lack responsibility. Okay, I would love to help any good American not have to pay income tax, but they have to actually be educated on the topic. Right? Do I actually understand what taxes are? Where do they come from? Why are they in existence? What do they actually cover? Okay, most of us don't realize the majority of our income tax actually covers interest that the US Treasury owes on debt that they borrowed from the Federal Reserve Bank. It doesn't go to public works. It goes to debt, it goes to war, and then it goes back into the economy to do stuff like prop up the stock market. That's what most of our income tax is going to. Okay, that's not a fun thing to know, because then I'm looking at, well, I'm funding that. I pay income tax, they keep borrowing, it's funding that sick system. Okay, but that's the reality. Like, everyone should see that and be like, man, that pisses me off. That's right, but we can't just not pay. Right? There are plenty of ways around it. So A, I have to actually understand what are taxes in the first place. And if I don't understand that, then I'm not going to have an easy time, because the thing is, anything I do with taxes, I have to be able to justify to the IRS legally if they call my bluff. So if I do all the creative strategies in the world, but I don't actually know about taxes, they come audit me, I'm not going to be able to tell them why or how I did what I did. Therefore, they're going to say, great, you can't prove it. That's not a legal deduction that you took. You owe us money now. So I have to know this stuff, and I have to actually understand it and put a strategy in place, and then have the creativity to say, all right, cool, let me figure this out. Let me figure this out. Because here's the thing, guys, if it matters enough for me to break the law over it, it should matter enough for me to actually study it. If I'm willing to break the law by evading taxes, that same level of willingness, don't you think should translate into studying, reading the tax code, learning about how all this stuff works? Like, that would be the logical solution. Okay, so I get it. I don't want to pay taxes either. I'm not interested in it. I know it doesn't actually help anybody. It's funding a bunch of politicians I don't like. I get that. And there's a lot of education and things that I can do to handle that. Okay. And here's the thing with taxes. Like, again, it's the lack of communication. Most of us are either too afraid of the IRS to do anything. Like, I will talk to people that say, yes, I purposefully overpay in my taxes and get a refund so that I know there's no chance I'll ever be in trouble. That's literally, like, that's what the mob does to people. Okay, and so if I have that mentality, that's fear. Fear is a very low level of responsibility. Let me give them and propitiate more and more and more and more and more. Like, that's not a good mentality. Not only that, but if I'm getting a refund, what does that actually mean? This is very basic. If I'm getting a refund on my taxes, it means that I loaned money to the government all year long, more than I should have. Then they gave it back to me and they paid me no interest. Okay, shouldn't it be the other way around? Like I would like to get money, like I would like to take money from them and not pay interest. not the other way around. I don't want to give more money than I have to give and then have them give me a refund, which means, hey, Jerry, I took too much of your money, AKA theft. Let me give it back to you and you can celebrate. Not only that, most people, when they get the refund, they buy the stupidest crap with it. They buy a TV or they go on a freaking trip, right? Like that was money that you could have just had in your budget all year long. So this fear of taxes, because I'm afraid to screw up, that's the polar opposite side of the tax evasion thing. Like that is also going to mess someone up financially because they're too terrified and petrified to actually put a strategy in place. So I've got to look at both angles. A, if I really want to avoid taxes, there's legal ways to do it. B, I also can't be so terrified that I do nothing. Right? The tax code, like there's layers to this. The tax code was not written by the government. Okay? Let me go ahead and show you guys how this works. The government is run by the Congress and the House and senators, like these high-level politicians. They vote our laws into existence. Guess where they get the laws from? Most of it they get from lobbyists. Okay, what are lobbyists? Lobbyists are people that are paid by large companies and wealthy people to wine and dine politicians to pass laws that favor those groups. So the tax code is that. The tax code was written by wealthy people who didn't want to have to pay income tax. Much of the stuff in the tax code is actually ways to avoid taxes. Very little of it is actually focused on you have to pay. Most of it's ways not to. So we had a bunch of wealthy people get the tax code put into place where they could pay nothing. Why do you think Trump won't show his tax return? Why do you think, like, he doesn't want people to know he made billions of dollars and didn't pay any taxes? Okay, and so we have to realize that that's the group that actually built the tax code. And so if I'm down here terrified, I need to realize, A, the people that built the tax code built it because they didn't want to pay taxes. Therefore, the tax code is made for people to not have to pay. So if I wanted to not pay taxes, all I would have to do is read the tax code and follow the logical sequence of things that the wealthy people who wrote that thing put in place so that I can get the same benefits. That's why I said that's just a lack of creativity. Next one here, collections. This is on the topic of debt, guys. We're talking taboo financial topics tonight. Collections, meaning someone borrowed money and then they just went MIA. Who's ever done that? I have done that. In my life, I have borrowed money. Let me see some hands. Let me see some likes if you have. I've borrowed money, didn't pay it back, and then it went to collections. Okay, it's not the funnest thing to admit. It's kind of embarrassing, right? You have the 1-800 number call on your phone and you know that it's them and you don't want your buddies to see your phone because they know if it's a 1-800 number, it's probably a debt collector, right? Like if I went into collections, and again, this is just my viewpoint on myself. If I went into collections, I lack personal ethics. Bottom line, there's nothing else to be said about that. I stole. I borrowed money, intentionally didn't pay it back. If it's still in collection, still didn't pay it back, and then basically just didn't communicate about it. No one ever talks about that though. And here's the deal, guys. Like when you have the collector calling, like it's such a negative experience that we never even end up confronting like, shit, I just stole money. I just borrowed money and didn't pay it back. Because the collector is usually like, you know, they're a little bit bullying. Usually they're manipulative, they're very persistent, they're very focused on getting their collection back and getting their amount back. And so it makes us kind of like ashamed, like, man, like I don't want to talk to that guy. I can't tell anyone that I did this. And it turns into this like withheld thing. And it ends up staying with us, like behavior wise and mentally wise. We never confronted and handled the fact that, yeah, I did that. That was a crappy thing to do. Let me go make it right and pay it back. Right. Even and here's the thing with collection, guys. I work with people on their finances on a very regular basis. The collection accounts that I've seen are usually piddly. They're tiny amounts. It's like $300. And usually the person has larger debts that they are paying on. They have a freaking $5,000 credit card that they pay on regularly, but they have a $300 collection that they still haven't paid that was from like 6 years ago. That's the phenomena that happens when we don't handle and confront this. Right? So I should look at the $300 because that's going to hold me back. I'm going to have trouble doing things with finances and expanding when I can't trust myself. That's the real penalty of a collection. I can't trust myself. I know I did that. I'm aware that I took money and didn't pay it. Therefore, I slowly restrain myself financially like bit by bit, gradual by gradual, until I'm not doing anything about that collection. I've completely written it off, ignored it, and it's just this thing of the past that still comes after me when the 1-800 number calls. I'm not going to get wealthy doing that. That is not a habit of the wealthy. And it's such a small amount, guys. It's such a small amount. Pay the $300. It's $300. We've all made dumber decisions with $300, right? So the solution, line up the collections, just put them in order, line them up, pay them down. Negotiate them, whatever you've got to do. I had one, when was this? This was several years back. I had one that was big. It was like probably $30,000 that went into collections one time. Business debt that I had. Right. And I was like gonna ignore it. I was like, I can't confront like 30 grand. That's a lot of money. They're probably pissed at me. I didn't pay it back. So I was ignoring the phone calls, ignoring the phone calls, ignoring the phone calls. And then finally they were like, hey, this is gonna get legal if you don't do something. So then it was enough to get like to jolt me like, oh crap, I need to go pay this back. And I ended up paying, like settling for like 10 grand. And they were very reasonable. They were very happy. They're like, yeah, don't do business with us ever again, but we're totally fine with this. Pay us 10 grand and we'll call it good. And I handled it, and that was like a weight off of my back financially, and it was able to free up attention units for me to now focus on the future, because I wasn't thinking about all this negative stuff that I did behind me financially. It got me into present time with my finances. So that's the topic of collections. Okay. The next one we're going to handle here, guys, again, we're talking taboo financial topics, controversial things that usually don't get addressed, usually don't get confronted, usually don't get talked about. So if you have one, throw it in the comments. The next one I want to address here is welfare. Welfare, okay? I'm talking food stamps, I'm talking social security payments, I'm talking, any sort of welfare subsidy income that's out there. I'm talking COVID PPP loans, that's welfare. Okay, taking money from the government because I can't support myself, that's welfare. Now, I grew up on welfare. Okay, I was a food stamps kid. I was a free lunch in high school kid. I was a food bank kid. We had, charities that would donate Christmas presents to my mom for us when I was little because we couldn't afford Christmas presents. So I understand that system. And it was something like as a kid, like no one tells you like, hey, you live on welfare. So I wasn't even aware of that. That wasn't something that crossed my mind. It wasn't a consideration I had. But as I started getting older, I started becoming more and more aware of it as I started having to work. Because when I started like my first couple jobs, I didn't like them, right? I was delivering pizza. I was working in a kitchen. Like it wasn't work that I loved. And I would rather be out having fun with my friends. And it crossed my mind. Someone actually suggested to me one time, why don't you quit your job and go on unemployment? I was probably 19 years old. And I thought about that, and it didn't really like click like, well, how is unemployment funded? How does this work, right? And so I just thought like, they're like, hey, like you go on unemployment, they'll pay you every month, and then you can kind of have your time freed up and you can go look for work you like. And so I was actually like looking at that and considering like, is that a legit, like, is that a thing? Could I just do that? Right. And it turns out I could under the right circumstances. And what I realized was that that's a low responsibility level. If I'm on welfare, what I'm saying is I cannot take care of myself. Okay. I'm refusing to take care of myself because I know someone else is going to carry the weight for me. Right. Who remembers being in high school working on like a project like in your class, and there's like 4 or 5 kids in the group, and there's always the smart one or the smart 2 kids doing all the work, and the rest of them are just riding on that kid's coattails. That's welfare. That basically is welfare. So whether it's food stamps, whether it's COVID-19 loans, whether it's $600 a week government subsidies, like that basically is saying that I'm either incapable of taking care of myself, which most of us aren't. If we're capable to watch Facebook tonight and be on the stream, we're not incapable of taking care of ourselves. Or I could take care of myself, but I think that that's free money, which means I really don't understand economics. Okay, welfare is not free money. Welfare comes from taxes. Okay, let me show you the circle of life on this. The government does not produce anything. So that means that they're not selling a product where they have money and they can then distribute the money. They only get money from taxes, meaning they take it from the citizens. They take it from our earnings, off our property, off our sales, and they use that as their money, and then they redistribute that through the welfare system. So if I'm on welfare, what I'm saying is that's free money. Let me take that. That's tax money. And then since I'm not working, I'm not paying back into the pool. It's a free ride, right? Like welfare is the literally the opposite of wealth. You have wealth, which means I'm financially independent. I don't need anyone's help. I've built this myself. I have enough of everything. My passive income is coming in. Then there's welfare. I'm doing and creating nothing. I'm bringing no value to anybody. That's why I have to take these checks, because most of my activities are focused on myself and not others. That's the reality. When I was on welfare as a kid, when I look back at what my parents were doing at the time, it was very like introverted, like let me make sure we're okay and the family's okay and the kids are okay. That's not valuable to anybody. Meaning I can't go to someone and say, hey, I made sure my kids were okay today, can you pay me? No, that they don't care about that. That's just life. Or hey, like I made sure that we had dinner fixed tonight and that it was in the budget and we used coupons. Like that's not helpful for anybody. So if I'm trying to get out of that, I have to become others focused. I have to become others focused. I have to look at who is around me and what do they want and need. Let me go produce that. And what I'll see is the income will start slowly showing up. Okay. Now the problem here is the welfare thing is kind of a trap. It's just like drugs. People that get on it, it's so hard for them to get off. Okay, as an employer, like I literally have people that I know what they're doing. They'll interview with me just so that they can show they're attempting to get work. They don't ever accept the job and they know they're never going to get hired. But for them to stay on welfare, they have to show that they're trying to get employed, but they're not employed. So they'll scam the system. They'll work at a job just long enough to collect unemployment, then quit. Okay, that's like a, I don't even know what income level, $1,200 a month or $1,800 a month. Like that's below poverty. So that's the welfare system. If I'm on that system, I have to confront, I'm not producing anything for anybody. I'm not valuable. And this doesn't mean as a human being, I don't have rights and I need to be discriminated against. None of that. It means that like from a standpoint of value given to other people, I don't give any. I don't look for ways to add value. Otherwise it would show up in the form of a paycheck. That's actually a mindset and a spiritual condition. I'm introverted, focused on self alone. I can't pay myself. Just like the government can't just make money happen. They have to figure out a way to get it, right? So I can't exchange with myself and expect to get something out of it. So that's the welfare thing. Now, let me just check comments here, see if you guys have any subjects you want to go over, because I don't want to just hit my list. So again, guys, we're going over taboo topics tonight. So if you have topics, drop them in the comments. Wow. So I have a client that just said he never talked about money until the first time he talked to me, probably 2 years ago. That's like, it's insane, but I also get it. Like, I totally understand that. Okay, here's one. So somebody wants to know the salary, the myth that the salary is the safest or best form of income. Okay, so what is a salary? Let's break that down. A salary is a fixed monthly payment that I get from my job. Okay, it's like the middle class thing. Like I get a salary at my job. I know what I'm going to make every month. There's no expectation on production. That's the idea of a salary, right? So, and I remember this. I think I was 18 years old working at the gym, and I was on hourly, and one of my managers was on salary. And I knew there was a difference. I knew, all right, Jamie makes $5 grand a month no matter what. I could only make that if I do X amount of sessions. Okay, and so the idea started thinking like, well, how do I get on salary? Because if I get on salary, that's more predictable, it's more steady, it's more stable, and I don't have to worry about that. And so now I'll try and figure out how to get on salary. The problem with salary, you have to think about this from the standpoint of a business owner. Okay, from the standpoint of a business owner, if I am paying you a salary, it's because I know you're worth more than that, right? Like if I'm only giving you $4 grand a month, it's because I know I'm getting you salary plus bonus or commission. That's actually like a good thing. If I'm getting bonus and commission, it means no, I see you're valuable and I'm going to give you control of your production. I'm saying the guy or the girl that works at the job and they're only going to make 50 grand a year. They're only going to make 70 grand a year and that's it. That literally means that my employer thinks I am more valuable than that. And so they're only paying me that amount. Okay, so really that's not a form of security. Now here's the other thing with salary. Where do I think a salary comes from? Do I really think that that's just free money, that that's just there? Like somehow I'm safe because I have a salary. A salary comes from production. Okay, if a company can't afford me because I'm not producing, guess what they're going to do? They're going to cut my salary. They're going to lay me off. Okay, and the problem with the salary is as soon as they'll find somebody, as soon as my boss can find somebody that works the same amount that I do for less money, I'm out. I'm out. They're going to hire that guy instead because he's cheaper. So this idea of a salary, it's again just like it's like a almost like a settle. Like I want to just like sit on my laurels and relax and not have to focus on production. And I want the game to be over because I'm tired or I'm not interested. So I just want to steady him out. Really, like wealth can't happen on a salary. Okay, if I have a salary, what I need to do here is I need to look at ways to increase it. Okay, if I was an employee, I would actually accept a lower salary with a commission. Like, hey, don't pay me $6 grand a month. Instead, pay me 4 and give me a 5 or a 10 or a 15% commission on all my production. I would rather have that because then I can increase my income. I can actually make progress, right? Now, the other thing is if I can't do that, then I need to put my evenings and weekends to use. The solution for me, if I'm on a salary and I cannot increase my income at my job, is I need to take my evening time and my weekends time where I'm on Facebook and Netflix and doing all of this stuff that is focused on me and not other people, and convert that, convert that into income. Okay, so that's what I would do there to solve that. All right, next topic. So again, guys, we're covering taboo topics. That last topic was the idea that a salary is the safest form of income. The next one here, if you guys have topics you'd like me to go over, throw them down in the comments. We're going to cover those tonight. Let's see. Good comments, guys. Okay, that looks fine on Facebook. Let me see if we have any questions on Zoom here. Ooh, this is a good one. So this is a question somebody has on Zoom. Again, we're covering taboo topics. Somebody here on Zoom says talk about the inevitable flop of the US dollar. So I think what this person means, his name's Travis. I think what Travis means is the United States currency, the dollar that we use, the green piece of paper that we use here in America. He's talking about that system failing. Okay, it's not a fun thing to think about. I will give you that. Thinking about, man, what if the dollar failed, right? Someone on Instagram just said I look like your dad. I hope I'm not, actually. I'm not. I was gonna say I hope I'm not. I'm definitely not your dad. I can promise you that. But I appreciate that. Your dad must be a good-looking guy. So with the US dollar, basically, if that were to crash, like everything would go down. Right. And a lot of us look at this and we're like, well, the US dollar can't crash. And the reason, and it's more of like a wishful statement than an actual fact. Like the US dollar can't crash because, like, man, like, what would I do? Where would my job go? What about my investments? What about this? What about that? Here's the fact, guys. The US dollar is what's known as fiat currency. That's spelled F-I-A-T, fiat. Okay. Fiat currency is basically a system where we use a coupon or a symbol for money that's backed by nothing and controlled by the government. Okay. From the beginning of mankind till today, there have been thousands of civilizations all throughout history, right? Every single one of them started with a hard currency that was like a gold or silver or copper or, shells or coins or something that was tangible that we could actually say, okay, that's what this is being traded for. Every single one of those civilizations transitioned off of that type of currency onto fiat currency. Again, paper currency that's backed by nothing, or just a currency that's reduced in value and controlled by the government. 100% of those currencies has failed. Every single one of them for thousands of years, and every single civilization that has ever existed in mankind, the currency failed. Okay, that brings us to the United States. We're doing the same thing. We're doing the same exact thing. We're using fiat currency. We're doing the same stuff they did. We're doing all the same habits and behaviors and printing money and expanding the currency supply. Why are we different? How does if I showed you an experiment where it was tested thousands of times and 100% of those times it ended up the same way, you would believe I was insane if I believed the next one was going to be different. It's not going to be different. The US dollar, it will fail. And when it does, it's going to be crazy because right now it's the world's currency. Like everyone trades on US dollar. It's what we exchange like globally, like everything is measured in US dollar in some way, shape, or form. If that fails, it means that we lose face with every country out there. People are not going to want to do business with us. Imports and exports are going to look very different. Wages are going to look different. Currency will look different. So it will fail. It's a matter of time. And it's, again, one of those things that I'm glad Travis brought up. Nobody confronts. Nobody wants to think about that happening. Okay. But little do we know, like in 1971, that was a currency change. That wasn't even that long ago. 1971, guys, that was like what, 40, 50 years? So 50 years ago, we had one. Okay, we look before that. We had another one probably like 30, 40 years before that. We had another one 30, 40 years before that. So it's a pattern that a currency fails and is replaced by another one. And it just continually happens and it will happen again. Okay, good question, Travis. So someone says, I think on the topic of salaries, he says, I get the same amount of dollars and work well over 12 hours a day every day, but earn as if I only work 8. I don't think I quite get that. I think he's saying he can work less and get paid more, which if I was an employer, I would immediately call that time theft and either demand more production or get rid of the employee. But that's the thing. On a salary, people will justify that. They'll say, well, I make $4 grand a month, so if I only work 30 hours a week, I'm getting paid more per hour. Only a buffoon of an employer is going to let that happen. And if you're a buffoon of an employer, your company won't be around that long. So again, it's one of those things where get control of your income. Instead of justifying, if I work less, I can have my hourly rate look higher, just go make more money. Like it's easier just to go make more money. All right, let's see what else we have here in the comments. Guys, if you have questions, again, we're covering taboo topics with finances, drop them in the comments. I would love to answer them. I see plenty here on Instagram. Let's see what we have for questions on Instagram tonight. Thank you guys all for watching, by the way. I'm always impressed with people that will sit down and learn about finances on a Friday night. Okay, my buddy has a question here. He says, okay, why do people think renting is bad versus buying a home? So that's another good one. I will hit that. Let me hydrate first. So renting a house versus owning a house. He's saying, why do people think renting is bad versus owning? So there's a lot of reasons for that. The first one is we have to look at home ownership and really the history and culture of that. Now, I don't even want to say home ownership. I want to say mortgage debt. Like that's really the underlying thing. Okay, so if we look at mortgage debt, that's the main thing that someone is signing up for. When they buy a house, they don't actually own the house, the bank does. They own the debt or payment on the mortgage until they pay that off with the bank. Like they don't actually own the house. Why would that be pushed? Because it's profitable. Banks want people to have mortgages. They're going to advertise, buy a house, buy a house, buy a house, because they earn literally probably twice as much as what the house cost in interest by the time you pay off that mortgage. Okay, mortgage, actually, the etymology of the word mortgage, mort means death. It like literally mortgage, mort means death. Like the full expectation is you're going to pay on it till you're dead. That's why it's called that. Like it's not even like a trick advertising where they're like, oh, we don't want people to know. They're like, no, we could go ahead and just call it death. No one is going to look at it. No one is going to actually like study it. They'll just do it. So the biggest reason why people think owning is good and renting is bad is number one, advertising and propaganda. Banks want you to own a home. When mortgages and home ownership really boomed in the US, it was around like World War II, Great Depression era. Actually, the conventional mortgage was a byproduct of the Great Depression, right? And so during that period, if you think about it, the United States was very industrial. We were factories. We were like very focused on like, you know, work for the company for your pension until you're 70. So banks wanted people to pay interest, right? Employers, large employers wanted people to stay in the same city because they didn't want to deal with employee turnover. And the government wanted taxes. Okay, back to root words. You guys know the term real estate. Did you know the term real estate comes from the phrase royal estate? Royal estate literally refers to property belonging to the government. That is why even if I pay off my mortgage, I don't own the house, I will still pay taxes to the government. And if I don't, I'll lose the house. So that's the first reason why people think renting is worse than owning. Now, the second reason is it's almost like a social mechanism that when I do something, I have to justify it to make myself more right. So a lot of people bought a house, and in order to kill the doubt of was that really a good idea, they have to enforce that it was a good idea. This is more like psychology of the mind. So if I bought something, like we've all done this, bought something too expensive, had my doubts about it, didn't know if it was really that good of an idea, the way that I fix that issue myself internally, this is most people, is we're going to justify it. We're going to try and get our friends to do it too. If I can get enough of my buddies to do it, then I'll feel better because they'll be in this with me. And if I can make enough other people wrong, I'll make myself feel right. And they get very like anti-renting. Okay, now the problem is in most cases, owning a home is not actually cheaper than renting. In most cases, people put little to no money down. They only look at their mortgage payment. They don't look at they look at my principal and interest is cheaper than my rent. They don't look at I've got principal, I've got interest, I've got taxes, I've got insurance, I've got private mortgage insurance because I only put 3% down on the house. I've got higher utilities that I'm responsible for now. I've probably got HOA fees. I've got repairs. I've got maintenance. I've got remodels. I have closing costs on the mortgage that I just did that, by the way, also got financed in and are also bearing interest. And I've got realtor commissions when I sell. When I add all of those things up, I almost never see that owning the house is cheaper than renting. And it's not even a thing of home ownership, is that it's more that people are buying more than they should. Nobody wants to live in a $180,000 house. They want a $400,000 house. But the fact is for it to really be cheaper than renting, it has to be the 180 house, not the 400 house. And people don't want to do that. So just to answer that question, that's why people say, owning is so good. It's really a social justification and just a bunch of advertising and propaganda. And it's well marketed. There's lots of realtors, mortgage brokers. I can't tell you how many people in the city that I live in, Anchorage, that are in the real estate industry that just can't stand me because I tell people don't buy a house. Like if you can't afford it, don't buy it. Base it off of total cost, not your mortgage payment, and don't put minimal money down. And so for a realtor, that means smaller sale prices and less clients. For a mortgage person, that means the same thing. So they're going to tell you the opposite because that's how they make their income. Let's see if there's any more questions here on Instagram that we can answer tonight. I see some more on Facebook. Let's see here. All right, that's all of the worthwhile stuff I see on Instagram. What up, Jake? How you doing, man? Okay, so Facebook has some more questions. So my client Marcy here says, what do I need to do right now to make sure I can get my car in December with my business and sacred account? Where should I make sure all the money is right now? You can message me. This is off topic. I was about to say, Marcy, this is off topic. I'm just going to message you. Me and Marcy are working on her first self-finance deal. Can you talk about the false stories people tell themselves subconsciously when it comes to money, i.e. I'm no good with money? This is a good one. Now, you guys may be surprised at my viewpoint on this. So he's saying, so the question here, he's asking, can I talk about the stories we tell ourselves about money? I hear this a lot from people. I'm no good with money. I don't understand finances. All of this is confusing. Just things we say that are like stories we tell. Now, I don't want to get too deep into like what I would consider mysticism of like The Secret and like make yourself feel good and the law of attraction. Here's what I think, and here's what I've experienced. Anytime I have told myself that story, it is because of something I did with money that was wrong prior to that, right? If I was no good with money because I stole or I didn't pay debt or I did something irresponsible that I considered a wrongdoing, in order to prevent myself from doing that thing again, I would withdraw myself from the area. The best way that I can do that is by convincing myself I don't belong there. I'm no good with money. That would definitely make me stop handling money so I can't hurt more people with it because I borrowed money and didn't pay it back. Or just anything. Like I earned money and spent more than I made. If I consider that a wrongdoing, I am going to find a way to withdraw myself from the area so that I don't keep doing that. Right. So it's not even like there's the idea or the viewpoint that it's mental programming or it's stuff our parents told us. I don't know if it is or isn't that, but what I've experienced is that I've made those stories up for myself in the past to restrain myself from doing something that I believed was wrong with money. So then I would tell myself, I don't understand that. I'm bad with money. I'll never get rich. Earning income is hard, because those are all things that I would say to pull myself away and stop doing those bad habits or bad things. And that would be the only thing I could do, because if anything else worked, it would have already. If somebody's saying, hey, that's bad worked, then I wouldn't have done it in the first place. Right. So this is more getting into like morals and ethics, but that's my viewpoint on it. That's what I believe. That's kind of what I've experienced. I know that's a little bit unorthodox, maybe different from what we're taught sometimes. Um, okay, cool. So I don't see too many other questions. I want to hit one more here. One more good one. Let me look at my list here. Again, we're covering taboo topics with money. Let's see. I've got so much. I'm looking at my list. I've got an entire list of topics, and maybe we can make this a several week series to cover all of these. What would be a good one to cover here? Okay, here's one. Um, so I call this being financially suppressed by other people. Like, so this is an area a lot of us fall into, and I don't even think we always know we fall into it. Um, Operating financially in a way to impress our parents or the members of our church or the peer groups we hang out with or fit in with our friends. I call that financial suppression. Suppression means like being held down, right? And the best example that I can think of is when I used to work in Minnesota. I had a branch in Minnesota. There's a lot of farmers out there, right? And so what I would commonly see is mom and dad owned the farm. They were kind of in charge. The kids wanted the farm, and they knew that they were going to inherit it as long as mom and dad were happy with them. So they would do everything mom and dad said financially so that they could get mom and dad's blessing to be able to get the farm. Okay. I also see this in churches a lot. Doesn't matter what religion or denomination, the pastor believes and teaches one way, and these are the courses taught in the church. Therefore, everyone in the church feels like they have to do it that way. Otherwise, they're not right. Right. So this is called financial suppression. I see this we just talked about home ownership, buying a car, like things that everybody around us does. And if we don't do it, we feel like we're left out of the group. And so we end up stepping into that and doing it because we're afraid of what other people are going to think about us with our finances. That's the situation. This is what I want to say about that. Again, we have to confront that. That has nothing actually to do with finances. It has everything to do with basically like being in a mentally weak position where I care too much about what other people think of me. Right. I don't want to disappoint my parents. So I'm going to buy a house because they think it's a good idea. Or I'm going to go to college because they said that was the thing you're supposed to do. And I don't want them to be upset at me. Dude, unless they're freaking paying my bill, I don't care. I don't give a crap. Like that has to be the attitude. Right. Or I don't really believe Dave Ramsey that much, but since my church teaches his courses, I'm going to do it because that's just what the group does. Unless that group is going to cover my retirement plan when Wall Street loses all my money, I don't care. Like that has to be the mindset. So again, we have to understand like what's actually happening there. It's not a financial thing. It's actually it's kind of like the social justification. They lack knowledge. They made decisions in order to make themselves feel more right. That group or those people have to enforce their decisions on me. Now, the ball is in my court on if I actually care to listen and actually like put myself under them and allow myself to be financially suppressed. Because at the end of the day, if they're not wealthy, why am I listening to them? Okay, if my parents aren't wealthy, why would I listen to them about what to do about finances in college? If the guy teaching my Dave Ramsey class isn't financially independent, why would I go to his course? Okay, if my pastor, bless his heart, isn't financially free, why would I be listening to what the guy has to say about what to do with my money? Right? Because at the end of the day, money is just math. So I have to understand money so that I can say, no, this is not a money thing. This is what you think versus what I think thing. And we're actually going to compare results before I decide I'm going to listen. Secondly, I have to look at, are they actually going to help me? Not meaning like, could the course help? I'm saying, no, like, is this person responsible for my bills? Is this person responsible for my income? Is this person responsible for my retirement? Is this person responsible for my investments? At the end of the day, if that answer to that question is no, I'm not going to listen to them. And it doesn't mean that I'm automatically closed-minded, but it means that I'm not just going to take their advice and be like, yep, let me do exactly what my parents said. No, my mom is not going to pay my rent. My dad is not going to pay my rent. They're not covering my car payment. They're not going to cover my school bills. Like that's all of this stuff like that I get trapped up in and end up doing that I'm going to be carrying with me for the next 30 years of my life with finances that they're not going to have any responsibility for after it's already happened. Before it happens, yeah, they might have opinions and ideas and instruction and all that stuff, but they're not going to be there carrying the bag with me. So I've got to look at that, and I've actually got to figure out, what are my goals? Okay. And at the end of the day, like if my goal is not to own a house, right? Like if I was really like, man, my goal in life is to own a house and to be able to tell my dad that I own a house. Like that's not going to be a very great goal. I achieve that. Now what? Now I've got the mortgage payment. What's the next goal? Just pay off the house, right? So you can see where people get trapped with this. So I have to look at, what are my actual goals? What are my actual goals? And is this actually lined up with my goals? Whether it's buying a house or buying a car or going to college or doing a 401k or whatever it might be. Like, I shouldn't be doing it just because I want to fit in with a group, or I'm afraid of what they're going to think of me, or, it's peer pressure, or everyone around me is doing it, or it's the normal thing for the age group and demographic that matches me to do. Like, that's not why I would make these decisions. And that's probably like at the root of this, guys. Like, there's lack of education on finances, but there's also like just that, the factor we're talking about right now, that suppression of like, man, all of my friends do this, all of my buddies do this, this is what my church thinks, this is what my family thinks. That really can mess someone up financially. And if they're not educated, then they're going to go for it, and they're going to think they're right just because more and more of their friends do it. I hear a lot, like when I show people financial stuff that's out of the realm of what they're used to, I hear all the time, why don't more people do this? And what someone is doing in that moment is they're looking around at their friends and their family and their church and their coworkers, and they're saying, man, how many of those people are doing what this guy talks about? And most of them aren't, because they're financially uneducated. And so if you look at them and see that, of course, you're going to say no one's doing it. But again, what I'm saying is, look at the results. Look at the results. What are the results? Are those people actually getting the result that you want with your finances? And if they're not, like, all due respect, and it doesn't mean they're not good people, but you can't expect that if you do the same thing that they're doing, that you're going to end up with results that are different than those. It's going to be the same exact thing. Okay. So guys, that's all I'm going to hit for tonight. Thank you guys for watching. I don't see too many more questions on Instagram. Awesome. Let me just check Facebook one more time. If you guys have any final questions, leave those in the comments. Let me check Zoom one more time here. And we only got about like maybe a quarter of the way through the list tonight. So if you guys have more questions that you would like to have me cover, send those to me. You can email those to me at jerry@wealthdynamics.com. We'll probably do a part 2 on this next week. Just because, again, these are topics that people don't talk about, and my intention is to open up communication about it, get it to where people can feel comfortable on these topics with their finances and actually start winning. So guys, that's all I have for you tonight. Thank you for watching. Make sure that you like, share, and subscribe. Have a fantastic Friday night. I'll talk to y'all next time.